Hi everyone. In this lecture, we will create a web controller. But before that, let's first add Spring Boot Starter validation dependency to be able to validate the requests of our web controller. Then I will add the request and response models under the model package in Elastic Query Web Client. So let's create a model package and then create Elastic Query Web Client request model and response model classes. I will use the same for annotation that we have used in query service for the models: data, builder, no args constructor, and all args constructor. As you know, these are the Lombok annotations. In the request model, I will only set the ID and text fields, since I only use these two fields to search. And in the response model, I will include all the fields, as we did in the query service, because I want to return all fields as a response: ID, user ID, text, and created at. As you see, I put also not empty annotation on the request model text field to validate it, because I don't want it to be empty. You may think these are the same models as in the query service, so couldn't we reuse them here? But believe me, it's not a good idea, because those classes will be used in different parts of the project and will be changed for different reasons at different times. And using a shared class in that case wouldn't be a good idea. Now let's create Elastic Query Web Client exception class under a new package, exception, in the Elastic Query Web Client. I will add basic 3 constructors to this exception class: a constructor without a parameter, constructor with a string message parameter, and another constructor with string message and throwable parameters. In each constructor, I call the superclass constructor, which is the runtime exception class's constructor, as you see here. I will use this exception class to throw runtime exceptions in the Elastic Query Web Client. Great, now I can implement the REST API controller. Let's create a package API and create class Query Controller. This will include a single endpoint, query by text, to query the Elasticsearch documents by text, as well as including a couple of simple methods to use with TimeLeaf. First of all, I cannot use REST controller annotation here, as I did in the query service, because to be able to work with TimeLeaf, I shouldn't convert the response to JSON. But remember, REST controller includes response body annotation, which automatically converts response to a JSON. So I cannot use REST controller annotation here. Instead, I will use controller annotation. First, I will add a log variable here using logger factory getLogger methods, and then create the controller methods. Base path should go to the index page. So I will create a get mapping here to return index as a string. And as a path, I will not provide anything in this get mapping, so it will open the index page when I call the web client directly, without specifying any URI after the context path. Then I will create error methods and return error string in case /error path comes with a get mapping. I will add another get mapping for the home path. This method will take a model as a parameter and populate this model object with an empty response model before returning home string. This model is the key to interact with the TimeLeaf templates, because any attribute that I put on the model object can be reached on the TimeLeaf template by using TimeLeaf expressions, as you see here. So if you open home HTML now, you see that there is a field definition with ID text and field text. This one will be read from the Elastic Query Web Client request model object. that we have set in the controller. Remember, we have a text field in request model, so it will be read from the object that we have set. So when user fill this input text field, it will be put on the text property of the request model object and sent to controller method. Alright, the final method in the controller will use a post mapping. And as a path, I will add query by text using dashes. This method will be the action that will be called from the form on the home template. It will take a request model and also a model object as a parameter. And again, it will return home string to render the home template. Let's log an info message in this method and create dummy response list. And add it to model as attribute. I will also add the search text to the model by reading it from the request model. And also set the empty request model to clear the text on the page. So as you can see, the return type is always string here. And the matching string of return type is actually the name of the template to render and show in the response. I will also add valid annotation to the request model on queryByText method so that it will be validated by Spring and the text field will be checked if empty or not, thanks to the NotEmpty annotation on the text field. Let's also add a controller advice to catch unhandled exceptions, as we did in the query service. So I will create a package error handler and create a class Elastic Query Web Client Error Handler. First, I will add a log variable and then add overloaded handle methods. But this time, I will put error also on the model objects to be able to show it on the templates. Here I handle access denied exception, illegal argument exception, runtime exception, and finally bind exception. This last one, bind exception, will catch the validation errors and I can collect and show them on the HTML page. I will redirect to the home page in case of runtime exception and bind exception because I want to show the user errors on the home page instead of redirecting users to the error page. Alright, in the next lecture, we will continue adding the configuration for the web client. So I will see you in the next lecture.